Thank you for listening to Pow Block Podcast, the flagship Nintendo podcast of Boss Rush Network. Do you need even more gaming and entertainment in your life? Head over to bossrush.net where you can find news, reviews, creators, podcasts, and more focused around the content you enjoy.
Hello everybody, welcome to Nintendo Pow Block here on Boss Rush Network. I'm your host, the enlightened and excited Eddie V. Joining me for another old school Pow Block. It's the one, the only, boss man himself, Mr. Corey Derrick.
Hello.
Welcome,
Hello. Hi. Hi, Ed.
Hi. Hi. Hi, Corey.
Hi.
We had an amazing time with that Nintendo Direct reaction.
I know, I want to keep talking about it. Because I watched it again at work. I watched it again today during my break at work, and I was just like, gosh, I take my Switch with me to work every day, and I have yet to touch it like on my break or anything. I just take it just in case one day I might play it. And like while I was watching the Direct, I whipped it out and was just like looking at all the games that I haven't finished on my Switch. I was just like, oh my gosh, I gotta catch up, because I don't know. I mean, we talked about it yesterday, and like how much I just miss Pow Block and Nintendo in general, and like I just haven't had a lot of time to just do anything with it, and just kind of like it's fine in a way. Like I'm just like, I just miss it, and I don't know. And that's why we're doing this episode, right? Like we were just hanging out and doing old school stuff, old school Pow Block. And I know, like, if this is somebody's first show, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but like it's not always like this, but it's gonna be a good time. That's all I have to say.
Well, it's funny that you said looking back at your collection of games, because this one of a person that I follow on Twitter was just like, is it going to be the summer of Xenogears? Because they're going to try. They want to play Xenoblade. Dang it, Xenoblade.
It's all the same. Isn't that crazy how like all three of these quote unquote franchises are connected, but they're all owned by different companies?
Yeah.
Because Xenogears is Square, right?
Square.
And then Bandai Namco owns Xenosaga, which is a great trilogy of PS2 games that I wish would get remastered someday. And then obviously Nintendo owns Xenoblade, but they're all connected somehow. You know, like they're like, I mean, obviously the term Xeno is in all of them, but like they're all connected, and it's crazy to think about how connected they are. And like when you go back and look at Xenosaga, and like, I mean, Cosmos is in Xenoblade 2 as a not a party member. What are the side characters, like Mithra and you know, like that, like those characters,
like AI.
Yeah, and she's in it, which is awesome. And like, I don't know how they got away with that. Like, I don't know if that's just like a character rights thing or whatever, but like that's so cool, and they're like deeply connected. God, Xenoblade, so.
Well, this is the funny thing, because I've never got to play Xenogears on PlayStation. I never got to play Xenosaga on PlayStation 2. I know Xenosaga, they was like, that's more of a movie kind of game, because all three of the cutscenes were long.
They were like, that game was super ambitious, because it was like it was like Mass Effect before Mass Effect, right? Where like it was supposed to be this sprawling like 5-game saga, and your save carried over from game to game, and there weren't choices per se, but there were like if you didn't play the first game and you played the second game, you're gonna miss a lot, right? And so like it was super ambitious for that generation, and obviously it only ended up being a trilogy, and the third game was kind of like squeezing the last 3 games into one story, because I mean, they were still under contract with Bandai Namco, and I think Nintendo was in the process of buying them in 2006 because they were sold in 2007. So they had to get they had to get the game out before the purchase went through, right? And so like that last game kind of fell apart in a lot of ways because it was it was supposed to be 3 games, and they mashed all the stories of 3 games into one. And but man, that series was super ambitious, and I really wish they would like figure out how to get that anywhere. Like, you know, like even if it was like just like a HD update on Xbox or PlayStation, like, or I mean, preferably Switch, but obviously, like, you know, that's.
So this is the thing. I kind of wish that Nintendo would talk to Square and Bandai Namco because they work so well as partners and everything. And I think
especially
Switch...
Bandai Namco, right?
Yes.
Like Xenogears, whatever. I get it. Like Sony published the game, Square developed it, right? That was like a thing, right? So Sony technically probably owns Xenogears, but Xenosaga, I feel like it would be an easier thing for Nintendo to go work with Bandai Namco and be like, hey, Xenoblade is pretty popular. If you want to make an extra $1, like we can put Xenosaga on the Switch for you, even if it's just like a digital version, you know?
Yeah, and for any, we talked about this with Fatal Frame, the Black Maiden. Like Nintendo let Koei Tecmo put that on PlayStation. For and on, I think PC and stuff.
I mean, that was just like a publish. It's the same deal with Wonderful 101, right? Where like Nintendo technically published it on Wii U, but the rights still reverted back to Platinum, and then Platinum published it everywhere, right? So
yeah, well, Nintendo has stock in the Fatal Frame series, so that's why when they said they were able to allow them to do it, like, Nintendo was cool with that.
That's not 100% true though, because those first 3 games were PlayStation 2 exclusives.
Well, so how, I wonder, because Nintendo does have stock in that series because they went and bought some. Because I always, because I had always wondered why. Because I remember Fatal Frame being very popular on PlayStation.
The Fatal Frame franchise is not co-owned by Nintendo. I'm reading this real quick. Koei Tecmo themselves said it's coming to everything. Koei Tecmo owns the IP. They made a deal with Nintendo to publish it on the Wii U because it's popular in Japan, but obviously it didn't come here until late. I'm just reading a bunch of stuff here. Yeah, I mean, it was just like a Nintendo. It's pretty much like a Bayonetta situation where like Nintendo is funding it, like helped fund it, but Sega still owns the IP.
Yeah,
and I'm telling you, I think after Bayonetta 3, I bet you see Bayonetta 2 and 3 pop up on other systems later
platforms and PC.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody wants. I mean, some of those players would like to play it, and you know, I think Nintendo would be fine with it. You know,
I mean, I think this is going to be a Ninja Gaiden 3 situation where like Nintendo funded Razor's Edge. Remember? I mean, like, the original Ninja Gaiden 3 was not very good, and then Nintendo funded the Razor's Edge version of it, but it still made its way everywhere after that. You know, like a year later, it's like a timed exclusive thing, right? And like, I think, I mean, as sad as I would be to see Bayonetta like not be exclusive to Switch, just because like, I don't know, it just feels like Nintendo really kind of saved that franchise.
Yes.
I think that franchise would really do well on the other platforms, especially PC and PlayStation. You know, I think if you put it on PC and PlayStation, like 120 frames a second at 4K or 1440p or whatever, like that would be amazing to look at.
Did you think it would be more of a respectful thing, or be like, we kind of got a thing? Because, you know, not saying that there are going to be some snotty people, because there really will be some snotty people about it, but I don't think some people are just like kind of I don't know if they're gonna be like thankful that Nintendo did that they saved this series to be on a Nintendo console, and now it's coming to their console.
I mean,
And
I don't really know, to be honest with you. I think that Nintendo kind of saved and resurrected this franchise. That the first game was good, right? Like, I mean, it just wasn't popular, and they did a fan service thing. They wanted to have a game that wasn't just for kids, right? They wanted that for the Wii U, and Bayonetta 2 was amazing, and then hopefully 3 is good too, which like the monster fights and stuff. I still have a lot of questions about. That's like, oh boy, did they just take a lot of ideas they had for Scalebound and shove them in this game,
Which, do you think that Platinum Games will? I kind of, and this is kind of a little inserting a little bit Arsenal X into this conversation. Now that kind of, this is the flow of the show. Seeing Hikami Hideki, I'm sorry, asking Phil Spencer, be like, hey, we want to return to Scalebound, because I think now it would be a good time for Xbox to have something like Scalebound, definitely with Series X. I think the system is powerful enough to bring that vision that they previously had to the system, and with all that Phil Spencer is doing to build up the Xbox platform, I think it's a good thing, because I know we talked about like Platinum wants to publish their own games and everything, but it kind of feels like that is changing.
Mm-hmm.
That idea is changing.
I mean, I think like the previous regime at Microsoft and how Platinum kind of handled the whole Scalebound thing, like that. I mean, that was what, 7-8 years ago at this point. So like,
yeah,
I think those conversations are happening. Will it come to fruition? I don't know. I don't know. I just think Scalebound is just a dream that's gone, right? But I think those conversations are happening, especially because Phil Spencer wants a foothold in Japan, and they're not going to be able to buy a Japanese studio because of like Japanese regulations and how like a lot of honor plays into the companies, like when they go to sell, like they want to sell within Japan, right? Like it's that kind of a system and an honor system, and a Japanese company is never going to sell to a Western company, right? And so I think this would be the next best way to do it, is make deals with these Japanese companies and say, look, Platinum, we want, something from you. Is it Scalebound? I don't know. They could go to Capcom and be like, hey, next game you do. Konami, next game you do. Can we have a piece of that or whatever, right? Like that's how they're going to do it. And like everybody's like, oh, why don't they buy Sega? Why don't they buy Sega? And like, I totally think buying Sega would make sense. I think the only reason why Sega hasn't sold to Microsoft is because of the Japanese honor system.
I kind of felt like the reason why Sega wouldn't sell to Microsoft is because of, and this is my old logic, I'm like, Nintendo kind of helped Sega thrive to still be in business and outside of the arcade stuff. I'm like, because at a point in time, and I think it's the sale of the Sonic games being popular on Nintendo, they were, quality aside, they were really selling a lot of games on Nintendo, which was putting them in the black instead of the red.
I think Sega was selling a lot of games everywhere, but like I still think I think a lot of people associate Sega with Microsoft because of the Dreamcast running on Windows CE.
Yes.
When the Dreamcast died, a lot of those franchises made it over to Xbox, like Sega GT and Crazy Taxi, NFL 2K. Like all these popular Dreamcast franchises. Shenmue 2 made it over to Xbox, right? Like that was like a huge get for them. So like I just think a lot of people always will associate Sega with Microsoft, despite how well like Sonic does on Nintendo platforms, or some of the other things that they've done, right? I think Microsoft is going to end up making deals with companies like Sega and Platinum, but they're never going to actually buy a Japanese company, and I think that's why I think that's where Sony is always going to be ahead. Is because, I mean, don't get me wrong, Sony makes great first-party games, and a lot of them are Western, but like Sony is still technically a Japanese company, even though PlayStation is run out of Europe. So like Sony's going to have an easier time buying a Japanese company, whether it's Square Enix or Capcom or Konami, or you know what I mean? Like they're just going to have an easier time because of the honor that Japanese companies hold within each other.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why when we go back to when we were talking about the Xeno series, and Nintendo working with Bandai Namco, and like Nintendo's not, I'd say Nintendo's in the same boat. They're not going to buy no Japanese companies. They stated we rather work with our partners than outright buy them. Now, if we need to shell out some money, we'll shell it out to get it. But I think they're looking at smaller studios that they have worked with to purchase them, because the only studio really that Nintendo ever saw was Rare. And Rare took a long time to get back to, I kind of say, well, a better standing than they have, in a sense, because like when Microsoft like purchased them and everything, not all of their games was hitting. But now you look at Microsoft with Sea of Thieves and their other upcoming is Evolve, their upcoming game.
Who's
no, not
game?
Evolve.
Whose game?
Rare.
Everwild.
Everwild. Why I say Evolve?
I don't know. You say a lot of things.
Yes. I really think that that's going to even make a good look standout game for Rare. Rare was kind of like not in a bad position, but it was just like, what are you going to bring to the table for Nintendo? Like after Nintendo sold to Microsoft and everything, like that wasn't a big story, but I think Rare is in a better place now than they were back in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think that I think that like Nintendo can start, because like we know that Microsoft and Sony are starting to buy up these companies, right? And consolidation is kind of like the big topic in the industry right now, and it's like I just want to play good games, right? Like everybody's always worried about these companies and everything, and I'm just like, look, there are regulations in place to keep these companies, not monopolizing or whatever. And I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer sitting here, right? Like I'm just not. Like I think it's everybody. Like when Microsoft bought Activision or Sony bought Bungie, right? Everybody automatically, the entire internet became, masters and professors in law, right? It's like
right.
It's not how this works. Like I just want to play good games, and these companies are doing what they need to do to be competitive, and they have a lot of money to spend because the way the economy is going, like the money is cheap right now, and they have a lot of money to spend, and I feel like the way Nintendo's going, they've always went to the beat of their own drum, and they've made deals with good teams, right? Like, I mean, they made a great deal with Platinum for Bayonetta. They've made great deals with Bandai Namco with Smash, and Koei Tecmo with Fire Emblem, and Fire Emblem Warriors and the Muso games, and like,
Mercury Steam with Metroid, two Metroid games. Grezzo with Link's Awakening and some of their other games. Like, I agree with you. I think it feels like the partnership thing is working so well for Nintendo.
Yeah.
Where Microsoft is Sony, and I agree with you. I just want to play the games, because I think that's the thing. I think that's the difference that a lot of people who have this discussion is not talking about. Is that, yes, these are big news stories. Yes, there are big purchases, but it's going to be the games that come out that's going to see.
The last,
go ahead.
I'm just going to say, like, the last teams that Nintendo even bought were Monolith, and they just bought Next Level Games last year, right? Like, that's like, and Retro, like, these are studios that they own, and I think Nintendo has always been really smart with their money, right? Like, they they don't spend a lot of money on like voice acting and cinematic production, to, you know, for better or for worse, right? Like, I mean, I think we have some criticisms of that. I think Nintendo could spend a little bit more money in that area, but like, Nintendo's always been about the games first and gameplay first.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to make cinematic adventures like Uncharted or Horizon or God of War or Halo, right? They're making games. And it was so surprising how cinematic Breath of the Wild was, right? And
Yeah.
even Metroid Dread recently, right? Like, some of those cutscenes are incredible.
Gorgeous.
But there's
Yeah.
no voice acting, right? I mean, there's like light voice acting, but there's no voice acting in that game. And Samus's personality comes out in her movements and her reactions to enemies, right? Like when she shoots Kraid, like he's like when he lunges at her, right? And she just stares him down and like shoots a rocket into his face, right? Like sometimes that's more powerful than you can get the best voice actors in the world, and sometimes that little motion, right, is more powerful. And Nintendo tried voice acting and production with Metroid before, right? Other M. Yeah. Nobody liked it. I mean, I don't think it was I don't think it was as bad as everybody says it is, but like,
yeah,
you know, the overall consensus is nobody liked it. So they stepped away from it, and I think we all have a different level of expectation when it comes to playing Nintendo games, right? We always have. Since the GameCube, we've always had a different level of expectation playing Nintendo games, whether it's something they innovated on, whether it's, you know, not being as powerful as the next systems, like whether it's just the lack of, you know, cinematic production or voice acting, right? We've always just had a different expectation of Nintendo games, and that's fine. We don't go to Nintendo games to play God of War, right? If PlayStation wants to spend, you know, $150 million in 6 years on the next God of War, that's fine. But I'm telling you, Nintendo doesn't spend $150 million on their games. I bet they don't spend a third of that. Because
about
they
30
make
or 40 million they may spend.
I mean, think about how much money Mario Kart's made. There's no way they spent more than like $30 million on that game. And now, I mean, obviously they're like still, now they're doing the DLC and stuff, which we found out last week, but like that work on that game has been done for 8 years, and they're still, they've sold like between the Wii U and the Switch copies, they've sold like 60 million copies of that game. And it's like printing the money. Animal Crossing.
It's like already half. I think it's half of the Switch user base. What game is what?
Yeah, I think a little under half of the Switch's user. I think it's like what? Let's see, what Switch said. They said they sold 104 million units now.
Yeah,
and I think they've sold 44 million units of Mario Kart so far, and which I guarantee you that's going up now with the DLC. Like there's certain games when you buy a Switch that I don't understand how anybody doesn't have this game. You know, like if you own a Switch, that you own Mario Kart. That's just like a thing. I feel like that should just be a thing.
Well, it was the Breath of the Wild kind of thing that. If you own a Switch, Breath of the Wild was the attachment rate to that system. I mean, when it first came out.
The attachment rate was over 100% because people were buying the game before they bought the console because they were anticipating playing the game. And I mean, obviously it helps that that's the only game you have at launch besides Bomberman and 1-2 Switch. Like, you're going to buy Zelda when those 3 games are available, right? Like, you're just going to. But it still doesn't matter. Like, Zelda Breath of the Wild is like a powerful game. The attach rate to Zelda is 25%, I think, and which is huge. Like,
real huge, yeah.
So,
you know, and I think it'll probably be the same. Well, they decided to do Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, which I feel like I can see that happening at E3 or sometime this year. It has to happen now for some reason, which is a good discussion to have about attachment rates of games.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think if Breath of the Wild gets delayed out of the holiday, they'll release one of them.
Yeah,
I don't think they're gonna release them both at the same time.
Oh no,
I really don't. And I think Wind Waker is going to come first because I think that Twilight Princess is too close to Skyward Sword, like in terms of gameplay and feel and everything, that like they're going to want to switch it up, you know. And Wind Waker, I think, is going to be next.
And they both did good on Wii U, so I could actually see.
Yeah,
the
but
same
what's
kind of style
what's good
release.
on the Wii U, right? I mean, 13 million units. Like, if you sell 2 million units, your attach rate is 1 out of every 5 people.
Yeah, but I think I'm speaking more of how they did the release, how they did Wind Waker HD, and then later on they did Twilight. I think the same thing will happen for Switch, because now thinking about it, if they move it now, just makes sense that if they move Breath of the Wild 2 out, that it goes to March, because that's tax time.
Well, it's not just that, but it's the end of the fiscal year. It's an anniversary of Breath of the Wild 1, which would be 6 years at that point. Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things you could point to have them be like, well, we can do all this, but also it's Nintendo, and we all know how they celebrate anniversaries, so why are we even talking about that?
But I think the attachment rate to Breath of the Wild 2 in March, if the chip shortage like kind of goes down or something, and like more OLEDs are become available, more lights become available, definitely if they discontinue the original Switch or the last version of it, and focus on OLED.
It seems that the Switches, every 2 years we're getting a revision, right? That seems to be the cadence. And 2017 we got it launched, right? 2019 we got the Switch Lite and the revised version of the original Switch, right? So technically we got 2 revisions. This year, or 2021, we got the OLED. I think 2023 we see some sort of 3rd revision on this thing, which will be, my prediction is the next, whatever Nintendo's next console is out in 2025, and it'll be backwards compatible with Switch. That's my projection. I think it's going to be an HD Switch, a Super Switch, whatever. It's got to be this, right? We've talked about it so many times, but if it is not one console that you can take with you, they are making a huge mistake and a big step backwards.
They can't go. They got to keep this going of being able to play on the TV and on the go.
Yeah, if their next console does not resemble the Switch, regardless if it's backwards compatible or not, if it does not resemble this machine in my hand right here, they are taking a big step backwards, and it is a huge mistake.
Yeah, because I think Nintendo just, they got the best of both worlds and stuff, and I think it's because of the success and everything, and I think they can't go back, because if Sony and Microsoft tried this, it's not going to work at all. I'm sorry, it's not gonna. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think a lot of people are really impatient too, and like looking at the Nintendo Switch and looking at their online service and stuff, and like, their online service sucks. Like, playing online on Nintendo kind of really sucks. But I think what they're building with especially their expansion pass specifically, and like if they just keep adding stuff over time, it would be so stupid if it didn't run over into the next system. If you're just paying, the way that Xbox Live and PlayStation Network work, right, where it just doesn't carry over. Yeah. Well, I would say Xbox Live more specifically, as we all know the issues that PlayStation has. But like the expansion pass stuff, if that stuff doesn't carry over to keep people incentivized to subscribe to this thing, like.
Yeah,
like that would just be dumb, and I don't want to be like a negative Nancy about stuff that hasn't happened yet, or like that we don't even know when the Switch's life cycle is ending. I know they said they're like halfway through, which is like, okay, so even if they put it at 2026 or 2027, right? Like that's so far away. Those aren't real years. That is not a real year. 2027 is not a real year. God, I'm gonna be 2027. I'm gonna be 41. I can't stop.
I'll be 47.
No, stop. Nope, stop it. You stop it right now. You shut your mouth.
Hey, shoot, LeBron gonna be 52. So
Old man. But like, I mean, even if you did that, like, I think Nintendo's leadership right now, you know, we praise Iwata for his innovation and his design and keeping games fun.
Yes.
And I still really respect him for that, and I love that he did that. I think for where video games are right now and where they're headed, I think Nintendo's leadership, not necessarily their engineers or their online team or anything, I think their leadership knows where they're going. That's why Mario Kart is getting DLC, right?
Yes.
And that's why, like, Mario Kart is essentially a live service game now. Smash Brothers has been a live service game for the last couple of years. They've gotten Fortnite on the system, right? Like, they know what to do. And I think they're heading that way. And I think whatever takes over for the Switch is going to have a better online presence. They're going to be able to have a Wii U type store. They're going to have better online functionality. They're going to hopefully get rid of friend codes. Jeez, just get rid of them. And I think Nintendo's headed in the right direction, and I just hope that they don't screw it up, because I really like what they're doing with their online service.
And that's kind of the topic that we were going to get into. We could get into it now. And the topic that I had was talking about the Nintendo Expansion Pass future and how it was going to handle like DLC, how it was going to make us purchase it. And it's great that you just said that, Corey, about the Expansion Pass, because I'm just like, when you think about it, why would Nintendo spend all this time getting this online function going, the service, putting all of these games, all of this DLC, putting everything into it for years, and then when the next system come, start from the ground up? It's just like whatever we did in the past stays on that system. You know, the backward stuff, yes, with the cloud and with games and stuff like that, that could come over or transfer over. But if it's like our service right now, we're going to start back from the NES and Super Nintendo, and like going backwards, they can't do. It's not a good business move. It's not a smart move technological wise, you know, for the team. I think right now it's just like whatever you build, carry over. Find a way to carry it over. Even if it took 6 months after the system release for you guys to get this, for Nintendo to get it together, do it so that people be like, okay, you already a member, sign in, bam, there you go. Everything that you had carries over, and now we're adding new functionality and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, as obviously the Series X and the PlayStation 5 are incredibly outpowering the Switch, right? I think the Switch is a great place for indies and obviously first party games. And yeah, when the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 were still a thing, like, I think obviously Doom and Wolfenstein and Overwatch and like, these are incredible feats to get these games running on the Switch portably, right? They're not clearly not the best versions, right? Overwatch is like,
yes,
it's not a great version of Overwatch. I'm sorry, but it is playable. And if you want to play it portably, you can totally do that. And I respect the people that want to do that, right? Doom, totally playable and actually felt really good to play when I played it, right?
Yes.
Wolfenstein feels really good to play. Textures are kind of muddy, right? Like, I think its highest resolution is 900p on the TV, right? Textures are not what they would be on Xbox or PlayStation or PC, but like, it still managed to capture that sense of speed. And I mean, we praise Panic Button for doing that kind of stuff all the time, right? Of doing,
yes,
like, really working these engines. And like, Saber Interactive porting The Witcher, which is a totally viable version of The Witcher. It's where I played it the most, actually, and it was awesome. It really scratched that Breath of the Wild itch.
Do a
portably.
lot. I know we talked about it, but a lot of people beat The Witcher 3 on Switch.
Well, I also think it really helps that like a lot of these portable versions of games that are available on PC can connect to the PC version, and you can save transfer, right? Like Civilization, The Witcher, Hades. There's quite a few more. I don't really know what they are, to be honest with you.
Even Minecraft Dungeon, like your stuff transfers over to the Xbox version.
Sorry, my microphone unmuted it. Yeah, I mean, like that's all set up through your Microsoft cloud saves, though, right? Like, because the difference between something like The Witcher and something like Minecraft or Minecraft Dungeons or Cuphead or something like that is like you have to sign into your Xbox Live account on the Switch, which is strange to do, but that's how you get your saves transferred over, right? And I mean, I think that's cool. I think it's awesome. I hope Microsoft experiments more with that, right? I still think like Rare Replay would be a great asset to have on the Switch.
Yeah.
Especially with like Banjo-Kazooie coming over and the rumor that GoldenEye remaster rumor is coming to both consoles, right? Like, I think that and we know Nintendo and Microsoft have been playing nice with each other for a while. Getting stuff like that on the Switch is interesting, and like we just saw that Microsoft wants to keep putting games on Switch. They want to get Call of Duty on Switch. They want to get a lot of Activision Blizzard games to keep coming to Switch, which is great. Because Crash and Spyro are great. I think whatever Toys for Bob does next would be awesome on Switch. I just think a lot of those games really fit. Diablo found a really nice home on Switch.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, that's why it falls back to where you're saying the leads, like Furukawa and them, like making these decisions and these business deals.
Let's see.
And
who's leading Nintendo right now? Furukawa's president, right? Koizumi.
Yeah.
And who presented at this direct? Who was the presenter at this direct?
Furukawa.
No, it was not Furukawa. Furukawa's younger than him. Anyways, my point is like Nintendo is really taking like a younger approach and a more strategic approach to things, and I think it's a great thing. So yeah, that's kind of, I kind of feel like we're starting to round back to where we were, but I like I said yesterday, like,
oh, Takahashi. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Takahashi.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I thought he was leading Nintendo. Takahashi was.
He was the interim president when they were trying. Remember before they hired Furukawa, and after Iwata passed away, he and Miyamoto were interim co-presidents, I think.
Oh, okay.
I know Takahashi was for sure. Miyamoto was in some sort of leadership role, but I don't know if co-president was correct. I think that's probably actually wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, because Yeah, Koizumi joined Takahashi for the direct. Yeah. Because he also presents too. But like it feels like it's kind of switching now, and I guess Takahashi has Takahashi. Everybody, I'm sorry. Takahashi. It seems that he is filling that Iwata role.
Yeah.
In a sense, where Iwata was, yes, he was president, but because he was a developer of video games of Nintendo, he also fit the bill. Where it just worked that everybody who watched the Nintendo Direct, when everybody seen Iwata, he got it. He knew that, yeah, his business dealings is what it is, which was really good because it worked for Nintendo. But he was the heart of gaming for Nintendo. So when you seen him, whether you like the Direct or something, he really just like he was earnest. He kind of apologized for things with delays and stuff, and it kind of just made sense of this is why people love Nintendo and their games and everything. And I think now seeing Takahashi, it's kind of just like it still feels it feels a little bit as Iwata, but it still feels as his own too, as feeling original. And then like he's getting more comfortable doing these presentations and presenting to the world. This is what we got planned for it, and it was good. And I think that's why when we seen the not Wii Sports, the Nintendo Switch Sports, and seeing them play the volleyball game, that's the stuff that we love. Like when these businessmen come and they're playing the games that they're advertising. Still just look at Reggie and Iwata fighting in Smash. Oh, and see how many views just that little trailer got.
How many times have we talked about the Robot Chicken stuff, or like the Muppets stuff, right? Like the Star Fox Muppets, and it was like how playful they were together, and like I like that they are still heading that direction. Like like Koizumi and Takahashi are clearly emulating that type of playfulness and stuff. I wish Doug Bowser would get in there and do some stuff, but I mean, he's not. I like Doug Bowser. I think he's doing a nice job, but like he's no Reggie, right? I mean, he's nobody's ever gonna be Reggie. Sorry, Doug Bowser. If you're hiring, we'll do Nintendo Power podcast every week. You can just pay us in games. It's fine. I know Chris Slate does it, and he does a nice job, but it's like once every 6 weeks, and I would really like to do Nintendo Power podcast, please. Thanks. Anyways.
Can I guess?
What?
The Nintendo Power.
We're playing with power.
Yes.
Anyways.
And I know that we kind of like hopped away from the topic, but it's kind of when you think about just all the stuff that's happening with Nintendo and with the Switch, and seeing how expansion pass is kind of maybe in the future grow, because I love that they put Captain Toad Treasure Track that the whole game just even for a week for people who have Nintendo Switch Online.
I mean, it's
that's cool.
I mean, they're clearly emulating like the Xbox free play days, right? Where they for like 3 or 4 days they'll release a full game, and after the weekend's over they'll put it on sale, right? Like Captain Toad was on sale during that entire time,
Yeah.
I think it was like $27.99, which is like a great deal for that game. That game is awesome.
Yes.
I highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't played it yet. I think I just think it's really, really a great thing that they're doing. I wish their online was better. I really do. I wish their store was more organized, because it is a pain to try to find something in the store.
That is true, yes.
But overall, I think with what they're doing with Expansion Pass is great. Like, it's almost like Game Pass before Game Pass, or like it's the same idea. They're just not advertising it like it's Game Pass for their retro games, right? Like I think it's basically a Game Pass for Virtual Console, and I think that once people wrap their heads around that, plus like getting expansions for free, like we talked about on the Direct Recap show, like once you get 3 or 4 games out that have expansions and they add them to that online service, that $50 a year all of a sudden doesn't seem like a expensive price hike.
Right? Because I'm just like, and I always say when me and Jack was talking about the expansion pass, I'll keep going back to that. I'm like, people don't realize you're getting 4 systems. If they continue to do the DLC, that's a good value and everything. Because we don't know if they'll ever take them down. Nintendo hasn't said nothing about taking the DLC down, so it may be up there until, like you said, Corey, until you don't want to subscribe no more. Like it could keep going on until the Switch lifespan, and then even if they transfer it to their next console, that's still a good value for it, and you're getting import games that never came to America or people don't know about. So you're getting a lot of value for one payment, and I think I don't know why people don't see that. I mean, that is a good deal.
I just think people like to complain. People complain to complain, and that's if they think $50 is too much, then they don't have to buy it, right? Like if you don't want to buy into something, then don't buy into it. You don't have to complain about it. There's plenty of other people who want to buy into this, right? Like I do.
Yes.
I think it's almost like the Netflix situation, right? Where like I never play Switch Online. I don't have to pay for the service, right? The only time I play Switch Online is if we were recording something, or like once in a while when we play Mario Party or Mario Kart with the community or with each other. Like,
yeah.
But it's the Netflix effect where like it's safe to have it. It's why people still have cable. I feel like it's like it's a safety net. I know it's there if I need to watch something, and that's fine. Like I don't care that people make fun of me because I'm excited to have Nintendo 64 games on my Switch. When did this expansion pass come out? Like September?
Came out in
maybe? October? Ask me how many Nintendo 64 games I've played so far. Ask me. I got the first star in Mario 64 and turned it off. I was like, that's good enough for me. Right? I will probably play Zelda at some point. There's games on other consoles like Banjo-Kazooie I will probably play on Xbox because I just know it's going to run better. Microsoft put the work into, that second stick is a great camera, widescreen, HD graphics. Like, that's fine. I don't have to play Banjo-Kazooie. I can play Ocarina of Time. I can play Majora's Mask. I can play Mario 64. I can play Mario Party 2. Like, I can play all these other games, and just knowing that they're there and I don't have to spend like $7, $8, $10, $15 a piece on these games, and I just know that they're there and they're releasing more every month or every couple months, like that's totally fine with me.
And I was thinking about this because I know we don't talk much about Sega Genesis, but I'm just like, if Nintendo's talking to Sega, to be like,
I bought the Sega Genesis collection like literally like 3 months before they announced this, like because it was on sale. Like I think the collection was like $29.99 or $39.99. And it was on sale for like $15. I was like, well, look, this is the way I'm going to get to play Sega Genesis games on my Switch. Am I going to play them? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not.
But then I started thinking, I was just like, if Nintendo Sega is talking, they could mix in the Sega CD with this. Because this generation does not know anything for Sega CD, and I'm just like, maybe because of Switch,
you could do. I mean, even if you did it as like a separate thing, right? Like you could do, even within the Genesis, you could do Sega CD and 32X.
Yeah,
and then like, when Sega figures out how to emulate Sega Saturn, like that would be like a killer thing for Switch Online to have. It's a Sega Saturn, and a Dreamcast simulator. Like, there's so many things you could do.
Right. Because I'm like, people who didn't know anything about the TurboGrafx, they're buying games on Wii, the Virtual Console, about TurboGrafx. And I'm just like, this is the stuff that I would love to see. And I'm not saying that it's trying to outbeat Game Pass or anything like that. But I'm like, if we're going to have a retro collection and more history about a company and their games and stuff, right now that could be the future expansion pass. Like Sega has a very big history of games that we don't know, and I feel like someone asked a question, this comment out on Twitter, just said, I'm sorry, everybody going back to Microsoft, that said, if you could ask Phil Spencer any kind of question, what would you ask him? And I wrote to this person, I was just like, would you ever go to any companies and see if you could get their games that have been shelved, even though they're finished, but they just got shelved, and put them on Game Pass? Because if you make stuff that's exclusive to Game Pass that you can't get anywhere else, I think you're going to have people flock to your service. Because the same thing can happen with Nintendo. People could flock to this service if they put out stuff that no one doesn't know about, or it it was finished, but it never came out. If they was able to get the code and stuff. Like there's a lot of history with that. I would love to play Doki Doki Panic 2 or Doki Doki Panic.
Mm-hmm.
And Nintendo they have the code, so they can actually put it out.
Well, I mean, they've been having that history of putting Japanese games on the Virtual Console. You know, like those games are on there, and yeah, playing Doki Doki Panic would be like really interesting to see how different it is from Mario 2, right? Like, I mean, we all know Mario 2, but this is the real game, right? Like Mario 2 is a fake game to, like, I mean, right. It's even called Super Mario USA in Japan. Like that's what it's called because they reskinned it. And so, yeah, I mean, the real Mario 2 is the Lost Levels to us, right? Like that's the real Mario 2. And the fact that like, I don't know, Mario 2 is so good, by the way. Can we just acknowledge how good Super Mario 2 is?
Yes.
It's so good. Not Lost Levels, like the proper Mario 2 USA.
I love amazing. The soundtrack. Dude, I got that game for my birthday, and when I heard that, I was just like, "Oh wow,
yeah,
how good it was." And we don't even think about Treehouse. Like Treehouse could go in and localize these games.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know. There's a couple games that like I'm so just confused on why they haven't done it yet, and like as much as I think Earthbound is overrated, like there's a lot of people that don't think that game is overrated and they want Mother 3, and I still think that when Game Boy Advance launches on the Switch, like Game Boy and Game Boy Advance for expansion pass or whatever, whichever. I'm still of the mind that Game Boy is going to go with the $20 version and Game Boy Advance is going to be on the $50 version. That's my vision.
That is a good deal.
Mm-hmm. And
like if.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no! Because still back to the topic of the future of Special Pass. That would be a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
If you want the Game Boy Advance version, you have to upgrade to expansion pass. So that's like an extra $30-some to make it $50. If you already subscribed to the $20 version. But if you already own the $20 version, you guys get this list of Game Boys. Because if Game Boy Advance got more wanted games than Game Boy, people are going to jump. Now, I'm going to say this, Nintendo and Konami, y'all better put that Ninja Turtle game, if y'all could, on the Game Boy. Because when they brought that game to the Game Boy, that was one of my first Christmas presents. And I kind of enjoyed that game. But shoot, I would love to play some Game Boy Advance games. Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero, like Fusion and Zero Mission on Switch, on Game Boy Advance.
Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it.
It's yeah. It's yeah. I think that like for me, I still think like Game Boy and Game Boy Color would be in like one section, right? That totally makes sense. Like I think Game Boy and Game Boy Color will be sectioned together, right? I don't think they would have a separate launcher for Game Boy Color games, right? Like that doesn't.
Right.
I just don't think that. I do think that Game Boy Advance would be part of the $50 ones, and if you wanted to make a big splash, getting back to like the Earthbound stuff, like you launch the Game Boy Advance launcher with Mother 3. Like, yeah. I think you do that. I think you launch it with stuff like, obviously, like Mother 3. I think that would be a huge draw for a lot of people who are on the fence of paying the $50. You know, I don't really know how popular Earthbound is, right? Like, I hear a lot of things, but like, is it a Mirror's Edge situation where like everybody clamors for a sequel and then it sells less than 200,000 copies? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I feel like, but at the same time, like a lot of people who are into Earthbound are also the same people who probably don't want to pay the $50 for like, you know, because they're into cozy games or, you know, simple games or just not into the whole online thing. And so if you're going to do that, I think that's the way you get. And and people might say that's shady. I just want to buy it for $15 and call it a day. But like, it's a business. Just do it.
Right. And I think just that one-time payment is, I mean,
it's not a one-time payment. You pay $50 every year, but like,
well, yeah. But I'm just saying, I think I'm seeing it as one-time payment is that you're not paying $50 every month. You're not. You make that one payment, and then once next year comes to your renewal, you make that same payment. You're not breaking it down month by month.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because like I think that's the thing that was kind of with the direct and stuff that Switch is kind of, or even Square Enix is going to bringing these Japan only exclusives, and remaking them or remaster them and bringing them to Switch and maybe some other consoles later on down the line. Like, it's working for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
It's working for gamers, because like they'll go out and get that physical if they do it, and they'll read about the history and they'll find a way to go find their older games and play it and get ready for that new game.
Mm-hmm.
And if Nintendo Online does that, like if they put in some of these games that's on the NES, Super NES, and N64, people would gear up to get ready to play because it's going to happen when Breath of the Wild 2 comes. I think people are gonna be like, well, it's time for me to do another Zelda one. If the SP versions that's easier is on Switch, let me do 1 or 2. Link to the Past is on there. Bam. Let me do that. Oh,
mm-hmm.
Switch got the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color ones. I'll play it there if they didn't buy the little handheld thing.
Yeah.
I'll hook up my Wii U and play HD and Twilight Princess. I got Skyward Sword HD on Switch. I'll swing around and play that.
I mean, the whole reason I have my Wii U still hooked up is Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, and Xenoblade Chronicles X. Like, those are the 3 games. I'm like, I should probably keep this hooked up for a while.
And dude, we don't like even Minish Cap on Game Boy Advance. If that was part of the $50 one, I'm like, oh heck yeah!
I'm telling you, man, there's so many good Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games that you could put on Switch, no problem. Also, I saw, like, I know we kind of talked about this early on in Pow Blocks, like, right when Switch was launched, right? Like, you could easily do DS games because they have controllers. Like, they've already developed the arcade games where you could turn your Switch vertically, and they have grips for the Switch that hold the console vertically to the point where you could just play, like, Pac-Man vertically or some of these other arcade games. You could totally do that with DS or 3DS.
Yeah, I got my flip grip, and that will boost the sales of the flip grip, like literally. Yeah. And kind of like if I got to see how the OLED is with this pop out on how it looks like when it's ending up vertically. I haven't did that yet, but
I mean, the unit is the same size. The screen is just bigger, right? Like, because it uses the regular docks. It uses like the regular kind of holsters and stuff. So I don't see why,
it would look different. Yeah, because I'm like that. You can still do DS games if it's just like a map or anything that you really don't need or something, and they could break it down where you watch it and stuff, or it's like split screening. But on the go with DS stuff, oh heck yeah, people will play that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think this Switch has a lot going for it, especially like, dude, I'm looking at the list this year of stuff that's coming out this year. It's, I don't know if you saw this list or not, but
is that the infographic?
Yeah.
Infographic that people have been showing.
Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, like even next week it's like the Ezio collection is coming out. I forgot that was coming. I'm excited. I would play those games on the go. I think I played a little bit of 3 and 4 on Switch, and they both function just fine,
Yeah.
Man, this is such a, this whole summer, man. Jeez. Anyways.
With yeah. But I think we're gonna
No.
cut
Don't say we're ending.
we got more.
I don't know. Do we? I just want to hang out and talk Nintendo. I don't care how long we've been going. Who cares? We haven't even been going an hour yet. Come on, Ed. These are rookie numbers.
Oh, rookie numbers. Well, I think should we try to tackle some news? Would you like to tackle some news?
I guess so. Why not?
Okay.
Gosh, there's so many great games. Did you know that there's 2 River City Girls games coming out this year?
0 and River
2.
City Girls 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did not know that. See what happens when I don't talk about Nintendo for like 6 months. I lose it all. I'm lost.
Corey, I already bought River City Girls 0 for no limited run.
Of course you did.
Limited run. I keep calling it no limited run.
That's fine. I mean, so by the way, so remember how we were talking about Force Unleashed?
Yes.
It is the Wii version. It's an upscaled Wii version. It is not the 360 and PlayStation 3 version. Sorry, I'm just looking at this list and I saw that. Which I was actually kind of excited for Force Unleashed on Switch until they said that. You know, not that I'm like gonna play it. I would buy it and it would sit there in my downloads forever. But, gosh, June is huge for Switch. Holy crap!
Just
yep. June by itself has Mario Strikers, Fire Emblem Warriors, and Cuphead.
That's. Whew. Can you see Cuphead being as an expansion pass for 1 week, or like a 1 week exclusive?
No, I don't think so. But the physical copy will be out that week because they said they were waiting on the Switch physical copy so they could put it all on the cartridge. So for collectors, Cuphead, the physical version will be out that week, which is great. Gosh, dude. All right, so before we get in the news, okay, so we're out of January, right? Monarch's coming to Switch? Holy crap. You know what Monarch is, right?
No, I never heard of it.
It's the Splinter team from like the Persona team. They left and created their own studio, and this is basically their version of Persona.
Ooh.
Like it's literally beat for beat a Persona game.
No, wow.
Yeah, you didn't know about it? I'm surprised.
No.
I'm surprised Dan didn't pick up on this, being the RPG guy. Monarch, dude, he's going to lose like hours of his life. He thought Shin Megami Tensei was long. This is going to be like, it's going to make Shin Megami Tensei look like Tetris.
Because you said you said it's the Splinter Cell team?
No, it's a Splinter team. Like it's a bunch of people from the Persona team who broke off to do their own thing.
Oh, so they left Atlas and created. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said Splinter Cell team. I'm like,
no.
Wait.
I mean, that would be kind of cool, but no. So the big games for February would be like the Kingdom Hearts trilogy for Cloud, which kind of sucks, but those are. I mean, we still have to acknowledge they're coming to Switch. The Ezio collection and Monarch. March, you have Triangle this isn't everything. This is just stuff that is big. Triangle Strategy, Chocobo GP, which I think is going to be bigger than people think. Dot Hack GU, Last Recode, which I think is going to be bigger than people think. Persona 4 Ultimate Remax, which I think is like the dancing game. Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, Rune Factory 5, and Mario Kart DLC. That's March. That's just March, dude.
This is the problem with Rune Factory 5. I think everybody got so hyped about all the other stuff that they forgot about that game.
Yeah. April is even bigger. It's Chrono Cross, Lego Star Wars, Advance Wars, 13 Sentinels, and Nintendo Switch Sports. That's April. May is 2 Point Hospital. Let's see. And River City Girls 0, which is kind of like a nice little break. And then June is Mario Strikers, Fire Emblem Warriors, and Cuphead. July is Klonoa and Live Alive. And then August is Splatoon and Monster Hunter and which I didn't know those dates were confirmed, but this infographic says it's confirmed for August. No Man's Sky and Front Mission. And September is Xenoblade.
And I think Dying Light 2, Stay Human is in August for Switch.
This infographic just has it under 2022. But then like the rest of 2022, listen to this. 2022. Bayonetta 3, Sonic Frontiers, Breath of the Wild 2, Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Dying Light 2, Portal Companion Edition, Taiko Drum Master, Ninja Turtles, Neon White. Remember Neon White? How excited you were for Neon White?
Oh yes, I'm so excited.
Hollow Knight Silk Song, Plague Tale Requiem, Temtem, Metal Slug Tactics, Marvel's Midnight Suns, River City Girls 2. Like, what is happening?
We know that Switch is the JRPG machine of, but man, that's so much, dude. So much goodness to play.
I know, it's like, oh my gosh, it's just too much. It's too much.
And like I said, we still don't know about E3 because some of the games that are coming to other platforms may have not been confirmed yet for Switch. And there's a possibility. I really feel like, then Corey, I don't know what you think, but I think that Battletoads game that Microsoft did is going to come to Switch. I think it's going to show up at E3. I've been thinking about it. I know it's on Game Pass, and I know a lot of people didn't play it.
I don't think so. I don't think very many people really cared for Battletoads. Like, I think it was like a nice, fun weekend, and then nobody cared about it after.
That is true, but I could see it happening, or something like they fixed the controls and they may add some updated levels or something, and they could bring it. It's a possibility, or even Sifu might even come to Switch.
Plus, like, all the indies we don't know about yet, and like some of the ones that we do, like Shovel Knight Dig, probably this year sometime. That Yacht Club's new game, what's it called? Mina, right? That's what it's called?
I think so,
the one
yeah.
about the mouse?
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, that's... Anyways, you said you want to talk about news, so I guess we could do that, maybe.
Yes. So, we mentioned that Microsoft wants Call of Duty on Switch along with other popular Activision Blizzard games. This one comes from Nintendo Life. Microsoft President Brad Smith has said that it wants to bring the Call of Duty series to Switch, assuming its purchase of Activision Blizzard goes ahead as planned. Smith made the comments in an interview with CNBC, in which he once again made clear that Microsoft's $68.7 billion acquisition would not prevent its games from coming to Sony and Nintendo's platforms. Smith cited the fact that Minecraft is available on rival systems, provides the company is committed to this stance. He says the first acquisition made after Satya Nadella became CEO was of Minecraft. This was back in September 2014, and what we've done with that acquisition, I think, is a clear indicator of what we hope to do if we acquire Activision Blizzard, namely invest even more in innovation, bring it to more people, bring it to more platforms, make it even more useful and hopefully delightful for the people who use it. The last Call of Duty game on Nintendo hardware, Ghost, was released way back in 2013. And Ghost got panned everywhere on all platforms. So, But I think because definitely with Crash and Spiral like really selling well, to see a Call of Duty game back on Nintendo, I know a lot of people will point and laugh and not really support it, but I think that gives the Activision teams flexibility to create something, in their own way. Like, it doesn't have to. I feel like it doesn't have to be that same version of PlayStation and Microsoft. Tell a different story. it can have the same title, but do a different thing for it, and not and whatever fits on that hardware, and that's innovative and work. Because I feel like you can still make the same Call of Duties, but let the Switch version be the innovation and creative ideas, so that when you do make your next game, you can implement those ideas. It's worked for some people,
I
you
mean,
know.
yeah, but I think that even with the purchase of Microsoft, like it's still Activision, right? They just want to
Hmm.
to sell as many copies as they can, and with PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions not coming out after this year, right? I think they said what
Yes.
2023 they're ditching last gen, which is fine. I think they need to find a way to at least connect with a new audience, and like I don't know, I don't really think this is the place to have Call of Duty. I would much rather have another Crash or Spyro, or
Hmm.
even I even said that like something like Pitfall could be their version of Uncharted at some point now,
Yeah.
which whatever, that's a conversation for a different day. But
I,
I mean, I think Activision Blizzard games on Switch is going to be Diablo, it's going to be Overwatch, it's going to
mhm.
be Crash, Spyro, and I don't see Call of Duty coming to Switch. I'm sorry, I don't. I just don't. And if it does, like, it's gonna be after, the acquisition, because I don't
Yeah.
think Activision is gonna put their own money into developing it for it, right?
Yes.
I think it's gonna be more of like a goodwill move than hey, we're doing this because we're gonna sell 10 million units on Switch, right? But like, and it could also be a cloud version also, which is also not what people want. So I don't know.
Yeah. And I think we talked about it on Power Block, that it's too late for Activision to really put in the support about it, because this is the first time
But they have,
that I
like, the thing is like Activision has actually been pretty supportive of the Switch. Like,
yeah.
you look at what EA hasn't done, and like what Take Two hasn't done. I mean, I guess like Borderlands is like, well, I guess 2K has kind of supported the Switch more than you think. But like, I mean, you look at Activision, the only thing that they put out that's not on Switch is Call of Duty,
Yeah.
Crash,
But I
Crash Team Racing, Spyro,
but I,
Diablo. Like
I
all
think
these Activision games are on Switch.
they're on, yes, they are on Switch, but I think the support is that you didn't, when the other systems got their release, that's when you decided that you want to work on the Switch version and put it on there
It's
instead of
because
making
it's because the Switch is harder to develop for. When you're developing for these consoles that are essentially identical between the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One,
Mhm.
and you try to port to something that is running on old mobile chip style things, that's takes some time. And I mean, even like like, don't get me wrong, like I do think that these games should come out day and date, but also like you're crapping on Activision for doing that when Bethesda did the same thing with
Yeah.
Wolfenstein and Doom, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that's you know what I mean? Like, I just think that the Switch is just harder to develop for, and when they develop it for Switch and they like announce it for Switch after the fact, that's like it's a second marketing push that they can point to. They can make it an event. They can say, "Hey, we're a third party that supports Switch," and I actually think that benefits sales and it doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
I
Now,
think
with stuff like Wolfenstein and Doom, like, you sell 5-6 million copies and then it drops to $19.99 on Xbox, and then they put it out for 60 on Switch. That's a little like, I mean, that they did. Ubisoft did that with Watch Dogs on the Wii U, right? And like that
yeah.
came out 10 months after the fact, and like I think I was the only person that literally bought it on the Wii U.
Dude, I was surprised that you was able to find a copy.
I pre-ordered it. That's the only reason why I got it, is because I pre-ordered it.
I didn't even know they were doing pre-orders for that game.
Yeah.
I think
I also
me
pre-ordered Aliens Colonial Marines for Wii U, and it never came out. So
right. I think I get on Activision saying it and not Bethesda. I think because with Bethesda, they mention who they're working with, and I think the interviews of them talking and like kind of just like talk, saying what they're doing to get it out. I just like, okay, now I know why it's delayed and why the Switch version is coming out later. I understand that. Thank you for at least informing me. But it always just feels like when it was just Activision, and I think this is one thing that I just do not like. You guys have a team of 200 some people, and just because two consoles are easier to develop for, you guys are developers and creators. You know that if a new system has come out, you guys should be trying to work on this new system. And I know it's CEOs, and I know it's money, and I know it's a business. That's all good and dandy. But there's got to be at a point in time, because I got on EA about this a bunch of times and still get on them. Don't act like when you said that we only do kind of make it sound like we only make games for systems that's really popular, gonna get us sales and stuff. Okay, Switch has did 100 million. Where are the games?
I mean,
because
they say that, but then like you look at FIFA, it was the number like 3 game on Nintendo's NPD last year. FIFA 22 was the number 3 game on Nintendo's NPD last year, and it's literally a roster update.
Yes. And it's just like it feels, I guess my thing is, it feels like when developers do not care and stuff, bringing your game state to the system is going to get ignored, because for us, we feel like you should have said something about this game when everybody else got it. And I feel like if you're going to delay one version, delay it all.
Well, and I know that doesn't make sense though, because I mean, between with shareholders and how popular these games are, the Switch, 90% of the public the people who are into games look at Switch as their Nintendo first party machine and their indie machine. Anything else extra is a nice bonus, right? We are the rare exception, until recently, where like the primary place I played was Switch, and I still pretty much like still play my Switch a lot more than my other consoles, right? Like, but I have started to avoid Switch ports of third-party games, which is like, if you want to keep seeing third-party games on Switch, you should probably be buying them. But like, it's to the point where, I do have Doom Eternal on my wish list. I do want to see how it runs. I'm clearly interested in seeing how it runs on the Switch. I think that the Switch is primarily an indie and first-party thing. Nintendo has always been that. Even with the Wii, like, yeah, we got third-party games, but they were still different versions, right? We just talked about the Force Unleashed. How different was the Force Unleashed on Switch than on the other consoles, right? Like,
yes,
it was different. It was interesting and unique at the time, but everybody knows the Xbox 360 and the PS3 versions were their superior versions. It's been that way since the GameCube, right? The GameCube was the last time they had any sort of comparable versions of games.
Yeah.
And even then, like, the GameCube sticks don't click in, so you lose 2 buttons there. They were missing a shoulder button. Like, it still was the inferior way to play. And I think these companies just look at where they can be comfortable in developing something with the least amount of work. It's all about efficiency and all about appeasing the shareholders. And if they want to develop a Switch version, that's why Panic Button exists. That's why Saber Interactive exists. They can go to these third-party companies, and it doesn't affect their bottom line all that much. It doesn't affect their share prices all that much, right? Because they're getting the game out on platforms that people have and people like before the end of the fiscal year, and it makes them money.
But I think that's probably the thing with me. It's just like, why are you not trying to learn this console? Because
it costs them money to develop stuff. Like, yeah, technically, yes, it costs them money to develop for Xbox and PlayStation, right? It does. You got to have the development kit, whatever. The Switch development kit is notoriously more expensive, and the architecture that the Switch is built on is, for all intents and purposes, a different type of architecture then PC, then Xbox and PlayStation. It is a totally different platform than those consoles. And despite like regardless of some of the like interface stuff on PlayStation and Xbox being different, right? Like the operating systems are different, but the architecture inside the consoles are nearly identical, right? And it's just easier to develop for them, both in tandem.
And I think for the Nintendo side of things, that's why I said not reports and versions and stuff. I think it was just like, I think when I feel like third parties should support Nintendo, kind of make new IPs or like even smaller games, just something that makes it shows that you have learned the system. And I'm not saying that you don't have to put your big AAA, because now in the age right now that we are in, I think we have realized that as Nintendo fans and stuff, if it looks good and it runs good and it kind of interests us, we're willing to go out and support it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have no problem with them. I don't have a problem with them putting a game out on Switch 6 months later or a year later, a third-party game, right? I just don't. I don't care, right? Like, the Switch is such a different platform. It's such a different, like, it's just a different beast of a system that it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Nintendo, look at all the games I just listed off. How many third-party games are on that list? Two major third-party games on that list. Like, out of that entire list I just read off to you, you know, we have a couple indies. All of them are first-party games or second-party partnerships. All of them. And guess what?
I mean, Square and Bandai Namco.
That's what I said. Second-party partnerships with Triangle Strategy and Live Alive, and you know, the only one that sucks is like a third party game that sucks is the Kingdom Hearts stuff, right? And it sucks,
right?
So I don't count it because nobody cares about cloud. Nobody cares about cloud. It's I heard this saying at work the other day, where everybody talks about like innovation and like moving beyond, you know, where we're at in terms of technology and like being way past. And the comparison I heard was when people were developing cars, right? When cars were being developed, people weren't interested in cars. People were interested in horses that moved a little bit faster and consumed less hay. That was the comparison I heard to this technology. And that's why electric cars are taking so long to take over. That is why, you know, autonomous vehicles are, you know, we think they're like 5 or 6 years away of being like really relevant, but they're more like 15 or 20 because people just like the minor upgrades. People like things that just are simple, and, you know, it's, and the Switch to me is like, it's just like people pay for the convenience of it being portable. They don't, and you know, when we used to talk about why is the Switch doing so well when Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are more powerful, it's like people like the convenience of taking it with you. They like the software. They like having it. Nobody, like, people who buy Doom on the Switch don't care that Doom runs at 120 frames a second and at 4K on a monster PC. They don't care.
Well, the thing about it is, I think it's the lines that when people like we're great partners with EA and Activision, and it just feels like and this might be a personal thing to me, it feels like that you guys are not great partners because you're not bringing out some kind of games, or it feels like you're not working toward the goal to show that partnership. You're quickly ready
but
to
they are showing a partnership with Square.
But it feels like it's too late now.
It's
what
not,
happened to
though.
that partnership?
We got Octopath Traveler. We have Bravely Default.
No, I'm talking about EA. No, I'm talking about EA and Activision. I'm not talking about not Square. Square learned their lesson with the 3DS.
I think their partnership with Activision is actually really good. Like, you talk about like Crash and Spyro and stuff. Those were PlayStation exclusive. PlayStation paid for those to be late on other consoles.
The time exclusive ones.
Yeah, those were both PlayStation exclusives for a year. right? I played Crash at E3 or at PAX that year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I played Crash on the Switch that year, and it was still like 6 months before release because it wasn't allowed to come out. Like, and like Crash is great on the Switch.
Go ahead.
Sorry, like, sorry, but like, I think the worst relationship they have right now is with EA. Like, Ubisoft has always supported the Switch, right? With Mario Rabbids and Assassin's Creed. Like, yeah, we're not getting the newer Assassin's Creeds, but we're getting the classic old ones that I think people still like. You know, everybody loves Assassin's Creed 4. Everybody loves the Ezio collection.
Mm-hmm.
I think their Ubisoft relationship is great. You know, Starlink, right? That was the best Star Fox game we've gotten in 20 years.
Right.
So, like, out of all the big publishers, EA is the one that's struggling the most with Switch, and that's because they have all they want to do is have games as a service, and they're not, you know, their indie game initiative, right? Like, I think they put Faye on there. I think that was it. It Takes Two isn't on there. A Way Out isn't on there.
Sons of Solitude or Sea of Solitude.
I don't.
Which is a weird one because they showed that one at E3 for EA, I think a couple of years ago, and then I think when it came to Switch, I don't know if EA's name is on it.
I think.
I'm
not sure. I'm not sure, but my point is like, EA's putting like old Need for Speed games on there and Burnout Paradise Remastered, which is like a great version of that game, but like, again, Burnout Paradise came out on the Xbox 360. Like, they're not trying to have these discussions of putting things on Switch. Like, yeah, they put FIFA on Switch. How many people have been begging for Madden on Switch for years? Right? Like, that seems like such an easy win for them, and they're not doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to have Madden. I would be more likely to buy Madden on Switch than I would on my Xbox. Like, I'm sorry, I would, because of franchise mode, and I can play in bed,
and I think that's why when I wrote that article that EA and Nintendo should just go their separate ways, and because of with the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, like, everybody, this is the thing about
what a home run! What a home run that would have been.
And I think people would have bought more of it and played it. It really feel like it came out. It did maybe a couple of weeks and it went dead. Like, those are
Xbox 360 games, right? Like, okay, yeah, I get they did a lot of work to those games, and I get that, like, they did a lot of texture work and they did a lot of like extra things to those games to make them more polished and stuff, but under the hood, there's still Xbox 360 games, early Xbox 360 games. Mass Effect 1 came out in 2007. You're telling me that game can't run on Switch? It's the same issue I have with the cloud versions of these Kingdom Hearts games, right? Like, Kingdom Hearts is a PlayStation 2 game. Like, you telling me you can't do a little bit of extra work? Even like, I know these are the HD remastered ones. Okay, great. Yeah. So they're the PlayStation 3 versions of these games. Why can't you get this running on the Switch? You got it running on PlayStation 3, which is like notoriously difficult to develop for, right? Like, games didn't come out on PlayStation 3 for like 6 months to a year after they came out on Xbox 360, right? Like, you think of BioShock, you think of Mass Effect 2, like, all these huge games did not make Dead Space didn't make their way to PlayStation 3 till after they came out on Xbox 360 because it was so hard to develop for. Okay, great. You have that excuse now. Put in the work. Put these games on the Switch. Like, it's
and you can't say that well, it will cost us money. You spent all that money on Final Fantasy 13 and folks in Japan returned it 2 days after they got it. So
hey, I like Final Fantasy 13. Okay,
dude, they said that that game is so well, but they said in Japan that game was in the bargain bin within a week after it came out, and they spent all that money on that game. So you can't tell me that.
Remember when they were using Lightning as like models in clothing ads, and like she was going to be like, they had this big initiative. It started with the movie Spirits Within. Remember when they were like, well, these computer generated actors are going to be actors in other movies that you're going to see later down the road, and it's like, well, that never panned out. I mean, some of it panned out in a different way, right? Like, you look at Book of Boba Fett, and obviously, like, it's really weird to see a young Mark Hamill in that show. But like, you know, Lightning was like this big marketing thing for them beyond games. She was in clothing ads. She was in perfume ads. She was in like hair color ads because her hair was pink, right? She was everywhere. Lightning was everywhere.
Yeah.
She's still a cool character. I still really like Final Fantasy 13. I don't care what anybody says. Put that game on Switch. Where's that at?
That's what everybody wants. They want the Final Fantasy trilogy, 13 trilogy on Switch. Everybody is ready to give them coins for that game.
I mean, I think it will eventually. I think like, I mean, but like you look at, again, back to Square, like they've been putting the effort into some of these games, like Final Fantasy 12, Zodiac Age. They put the Zodiac Age version on Switch. They put the HD remasters of 10 and 10.2 and the 8 remaster and 7 and 9, and all fingers are pointing that the Pixel remasters are going to hit Switch first after the PC releases, right? Like that's, I just don't understand where their head's at. Like Square just does not. They have so many weird expectations for different things, and I don't understand who's making decisions over there. Kingdom Hearts. Right. I hate that we've talked about Kingdom Hearts for like 20 minutes on the show, and partially the other day. Kingdom Hearts is such a slam dunk on Switch. Why? How do you screw that up? How do you screw up, you know, not putting what was the other big one that they really fudged up on? Oh, like when Tomb Raider and Rise of the Tomb Raider came out, like the only reason why Rise of the Tomb Raider came out is because Tomb Raider was a failure at 8 million units. You know? Like it outsold the first Uncharted and they still called it a failure.
Right.
You know, and it's like their expectations for all these games are so all over the place. I don't understand who's making the decisions over there. It really bugs me. And like, I get it. Like if I had better ideas, I probably wouldn't be sitting in podcasting, right? I would be working for one of these companies making these decisions, but like, I don't understand them. I wish somebody could sit and explain it to me.
And because Square Enix was about numbers to get like we have a high expectation that it's going to reach these numbers.
That's fine, but like,
that's fine. But then what the heck how the heck is that you're disappointed in Tomb Raider, but then unexpectedly surprised that Bravely Default sold on 3DS? And it's just like, where's the balance?
Yeah, I mean, because like, I mean, they were happy with what Bravely Default sold like just over 1 million units on 3DS worldwide, and they were extremely happy. But you turn around and say Tomb Raider was a failure, and that game, like, even after they re-released it on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, it still sold like 13 million units. And it's like, how is that a failure? And you look at Bravely Default, and I get like they're two totally different. Like one's a AAA action, you know, super produced with voice acting and everything, and like Bravely Default is like this new kind of single A RPG experience for a handheld. But like, there's got to be some middle ground of expectations.
It kind of showed at that time that they were suspecting Bravely Default to fail and Tomb Raider to succeed. And it's just like, I agree with you, Corey. Explain to me, what's with this backwards reasoning and logic? Why would you expect one game to fail and expect the other to succeed in this vice versa? Tomb Raider really did not fail.
No, Tomb Raider was a success. It was a huge success. Tomb Raider, like, I mean, we talk about it a lot on the show over the years. Like, I mean, Tomb Raider is awesome. Like, I prefer playing. Like, I still really like Uncharted. Like, I'm not trying to like put it down or anything, but like, I prefer Tomb Raider over Uncharted. I do. I love Drake. I love Sully. I love the characters and stuff. But like, the act of playing the games, I think Tomb Raider is a better playing game. And, you know, I go to games to play games. If I want to watch Indiana Jones, I'll go watch Indiana Jones. You know what I mean? I like Uncharted, but I've played them. I know what it is. I would just rather play Tomb Raider. But like, I don't know. I feel like we're just like ranting
Going
now.
to circle. Well, and I think it's because I guess it's just when it comes to Activision. Going back there, we're gonna get into the next story. I think with Activision, it just felt like like once again, just a personal thing to me. It's just like why is it? And I think even with EA, I'm just like you guys announced these games, and then and blame even Square Enix on part of this too, because like why is it that these other consoles get the game that everybody wanted, and people are saying that they will buy it on Switch or they'll buy it on a Nintendo console. You already are seeing that people are going to give you guaranteed money for this, and it always get pushed back, and it feels like to me personally that you of course you focus on Xbox and Sony, but now it feels like you're going to be crunching everybody to get the Nintendo version done in whatever 6 to 8 months or whatever. Now it just feels like you're rushing to get this product out. Like everybody just stop development on it so they could polish the other two ones. And then it's just like if it feels like when it comes out, it does some sales or whatever. It feels like it's okay, and then people move on. But then when the Switch version comes out or the Nintendo version coming out, when they see that people are streaming it, when people are talking about it, when the sales are good, people are saying that if they decided to bring a physical version, if they just made it digitally and stuff, that people will buy it. And when the physical later comes out, people end up buying it. I don't know if these companies are paying attention that people are just saying, we will support this game if you put it on a Nintendo console. Because if you guys' logic is saying that Nintendo fans don't support your product, well, we're trying to show you that we will support it if you, treat it like all the other versions and give it put in the work to show that this game has good quality. B, release it on a timely manner and everything. And if you're going to delay and you're going to tell us, we want to know why it's delayed. I want to know if you're doing it, because that's the thing with Bethesda when they did Doom Eternal. At least that when they delayed it, Panic Button came out and told us the whole reason why it got delayed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of technical issues that people just, they're focusing on where they think they're going to sell the most units, and that's clearly Xbox and PlayStation. And then when they get there, and once they have those games out and running and engineered correctly, they move their engineers over to the Switch version. And I get it. Like, I totally get it. As Nintendo fans, we've been trained to expect that, and
yeah.
Does it suck? Yeah, sometimes it does suck, but like I would rather have something like Doom and Wolfenstein run well than have a Rust version that sucks, because we've seen that before too. And it's if you want to play these games, you have the option to play them somewhere else, right? And I think that's, for the most part, like, I think a lot of people do that, but also, like, I played Wolfenstein 2 on Switch. I played through it on Switch, and it was a perfectly serviceable experience. Was it the best experience? No, because it runs at 120 frames on Series X now, and it's
now.
Well, that's clearly the preferred way to play it, but also, like, it was kind of neat to play that game in bed while I was watching TV, and that's the trade-off. That's the trade-off. So I don't know. I think we're gonna get, just to kind of wrap up this story, I think we're gonna get a lot of Activision games in the future, right? Like a new Crash, a new Spyro, probably a new Crash Team Racing style game. I think we're gonna, obviously Diablo and Overwatch are coming. The one Call of Duty, if they want to try, I mean, whatever, I'll try it. who cares? I'll try it. But like, I think that Nintendo is just, I mean, we've just read this list. Nintendo is dominating this year already. It doesn't need, like, that's the other side of the coin, right? It's like Nintendo doesn't need third parties. They don't need them. Like with 3DS and Wii U, right? And then the Wii and the DS, like, yeah, they needed third party to fill out space because they had two consoles to split between. But when you have that much talent and that much development focused on one console, like, Nintendo does not need third party support. It just doesn't need it.
I would say they don't. They're not looking forward to Western third party.
They don't need any third party support. They have JRPGs, right? Like, okay, technically, they have support from companies like Atlas, right? Tokyo Mirage Sessions and Shin Megami Tensei 5. Great RPGs, right?
Yes.
Great RPGs. I hope other people get to play them on other consoles someday. Well, not Tokyo Mirage Sessions, obviously, because it's tied into Fire Emblem. But, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I think Shin Megami Tensei 5 is coming to PlayStation 4 this year. I still think that, but
it's been on a Taiwan list. It was rumored for it to go to PlayStation 4, which is fine.
3 came last year, right? So, I mean, and then you have, like, Monster Hunter Rise is a great partnership, you know? Mario plus Rabbids is a great partnership. Triangle Strategy is a great partnership. And I think that, you know, with all these acquisitions and stuff, I think Nintendo's making the right moves and partnering with teams that create great things.
Yes.
Instead of buying these teams, right? Like, because they could easily go in and buy Bandai Namco, right? They could, Nintendo has so much money that they could just go in and buy Bandai Namco.
I think someone said Microsoft, Nintendo, Activision because of how much the money was.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang.
Yeah, and like they could easily do that, but like Nintendo is Nintendo, and they want to do Nintendo things, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I just feel like we've been ranting this whole time about nothing.
No, I think it's a good discussion, and I think it's because, you know, it may be like I said, maybe my personal frustration and trying to figure out that these companies have these Western companies, I should say, have these big teams, and they want to produce the best out of the best. And when they said that, you know, this system is popular or this is and everything, and it's just like when Nintendo does something great or something great is happening on that system, these companies still sometimes won't jump on the bandwagon, and I feel like, well, you guys are literally missing out, because the thing about it is, it's just that.
But the thing is, they are not missing out because they're not focused on it, and like I really want to stop talking about this topic now because dude, we've literally been talking about it for like half hour, and now we're reverting back to the same thing. But like, I think. The thing is, I think if you're focused on Switch and you don't sell, you're missing out, right? If your focus is on the other platforms and you skip Switch and then you go back later, I don't think you're missing out because that wasn't your key audience to begin with. You know, like you look at Monster Hunter Rise versus Monster Hunter World, right? Like Monster Hunter Rise, their focus was to get this hand into Switch owners' hands, right? Yes. And they did. And look how well it sold.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter World is the best-selling Capcom game of all time. Skip Switch. Guess what? Switch wasn't their focus. They said, look, Monster Hunter World, we want it to run well on these consoles and on PC. We will make a Monster Hunter for you, right? Just let us get this out. We will get you a Monster Hunter game. And guess what? They did, and they delivered. And 2 Monster Hunter games delivered. And that I think Capcom, as an example, did it the right way. I think that's the way that they have to do it.
That I 100% agree. That's I feel like that's how you do it.
Yeah.
So, well, we're going to get to the last story. No Man's Sky has been secretly in the works for 2 years, and there's more info to come. No Man's Sky is coming to the Nintendo Switch, which many people, especially those who played the ambitious spacefaring saga on other platforms, are a little skeptical of. How are they going to fit an entire procedurally generated galaxy in a comparatively tiny Switch? Hello Games' Sean Murray took to the studio's blog to detail the process behind the game's development, including the fact that it's been worked on in secret for years. He states, "For the last couple of years, a couple of members of our small team have been secretly working on the Nintendo Switch version of No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is built around procedural generations, which means the console generates everything you see. This makes it so much harder to bring our game to something like the Switch. There have been so many times where we gone home one day convinced it was impossible, only to have someone strike in the next day with a unique technical solution. Honestly, I think this team never seems happier than when they are trying to do near impossible things. So it's not just us that thought it was impossible. Back to Nintendo Life, speaking, an impossible task. But the question is, like many other gigantic games, will this one be coming to the Switch as a cloud stream game? Murray doesn't say, but it sounds like that might not be the case. Checks out this bit from the blog, emphasis R's. Every time I pick the Switch up and seamlessly jump from planet to planet, from star system to star system, I have to pinch myself that I am playing on the Nintendo Switch and that I can take it with me wherever I go. Many of our community have Switches as their secondary gaming device, and we are pleased to be able to offer them our alternative way to play, either at home, docked, or on the move. The cloud games require internet to stream, so they're not particularly portable without a stable internet connection. However, Murray also says there's more information to come. There's so much more we have yet to reveal about the Switch version, and there'll be more announcements and to come as we get closer to release. Either way, we're excited to see this gigantic sci-fi adventure game come to Switch. Now, I think and that's what I love to hear, that someone there was fooling around. I'm like, I'm gonna code this. I'm gonna just see. Let's play and see. Like, really, and I think that gives a lot of engineers and developers that spark when they're able to beat the odds or fix a problem, to be like, oh, we could do this. Well, if we change this, let me try this. Oh, we could fix this. And I think when they get it and it works and they go on a good track, I think they feel very happy that they're able to do it. Because then they'll be like, okay, let's write this down. Let's keep this in remembrance. So if we decide to develop more games, we already have the scripts and the coding and what the skills to pull it off. I think, and that's great to hear that from Hello Games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know, I feel like the online portion of this game is where this game is going to suffer more than just like it loading stuff procedurally, because like, I mean, this game like is huge, right? It's like a whole universe, but the entire game, like the assets and stuff that it generates, is not very big. I think the file size on Xbox One and PlayStation is only like 12 gigs, right? 13 gigs, at least at launch. That's what it was. I don't know what it is now with all these updates or anything, but like, yeah, that game is technically not very big in terms of asset generation and stuff. And procedural generation, from what I've heard from developers, is that that's so many games are procedurally generated on the Switch that it's like it almost seems like it's not easier is the wrong word, but like more doable than if you were just to create like a catered experience. And so like the way this game generates assets and the way the universe actually works and what it's streaming in that you can see, and like they can control draw distance and what's streaming into the console and what's not, right? They can definitely do that. And it sounds like they have. I don't think this is as big of a technological feat as like something like The Witcher, for example. Like that game is a technological feat. This game,
Yes.
now don't get me wrong, obviously CD Projekt Red is like hundreds of people and Hello Games is 12, I think, or 15 in terms of the development team. And I don't want to take that away from them because I mean, getting this game to run on Switch, in a real way is like it's a great feat, and I'm happy that they are.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like he's kind of in marketing mode a little bit, and like really trying to say it's really impressive that this game is running on Switch. Please buy our game on the Nintendo Switch because we're kind of out of sales for this game, and this was the only way we could get more sales out of this game. So I'm impressed. Like I hope it runs well, and I hope the one thing that I think would actually do this game a favor is if they did something like The Witcher and they could say, hey, you can transfer your PC save to your Switch account and it'll just pull your save in, because like that's the other thing is like this whole world is generated online, and like if you find something then it automatically somebody found it, and you can land on other people's planets and find their scans and whatever. Like
Yeah.
I feel like if they allow you to bring your save in from PC or whatever, at least, like I think that'll give this game more like a longer tail, and people will be more likely to double dip because they're like
cross saves and stuff.
yeah. And I know the Steam Deck's coming out, but not everybody's going to buy a Steam Deck, right? Like that's a very focused thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so like people who have like a Switch Lite and a PC that they game on, and this is a game that they play, they could totally do that and be like, oh, I can take this with me.
And maybe not cross. Is it cross progression or cross play?
I don't know. I think it's crossplay. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me that. I don't know.
What? Yeah, I mean, when he says more info to come, because I know they didn't say anything about crossing anything, but they just announced that the game is coming to Switch, and we know that the story of No Man's Sky, like it had a terrible release. People were getting on Sean Murray. They were making the developers at Hello Games like feel like really bad and stuff, and they kind of had to go away before like almost a year before they came back and gave an update on a whole bunch of stuff, and they've been improving the game and everything. And
I mean,
like
that's a mix of like, yeah, Sean Murray probably said some things that he shouldn't have said, but also that like Sony didn't temper any expectations either. Like they didn't they didn't help the situation. Remember, like No Man's Sky was like their big thing 3 years in a row.
Yes,
and they're like, you can jump from this planet to this planet, and Hello Games is doing something really ambitious. And like, granted, it's still an ambitious game, and like where it's at is like, I mean, it's gonna be known for that comeback story forever, right?
Yes.
Until like we're all dead, long and dead underground. Like No Man's Sky is going to be the game that everybody points to. Is like, I mean, you still see that, you still hear that. Where like, oh, this is a No Man's Sky situation. I hope this gets a No Man's Sky situation because it kind of sucks now, but it could be great later. And like, I don't want to say like that's a pass for people to put out bad games, but like, people can hit a comeback, and No Man's Sky has like an impressive comeback story.
Yeah, and Hello Games with the last Campfire, they were able to get that game running on Switch, and then that's way different than No Man's Sky, but it was just like I think they kind of used the last Campfire as probably like just learning the Switch and everything, and just be like, okay, let's try No Man's Sky and see if we could get this game running and doing what they do, because who knows in the future what they hold. And I think even if this game doesn't get a physical or anything, I think people will buy this on the eShop. I think to me personally, it feels like a good digital game only kind of title.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's fine. I hope people that buy it enjoy it. I don't really have anything else to say about No Man's Sky in particular. I hope people enjoy it. It's
just good, I think, to read this to hear the story, because I know a lot of us was just like, wow, they're doing it, and then to know that they've been secretly working on it. I think that's real cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like, I think they've put in the time. I think it's probably a little too late to do this, but also like maybe that game has long legs. That it feels like one of those games that's in that sector of gaming that we don't know anything about, right? Like, there's like that whole section of gaming that people just, it's like Roblox and Fortnite and Minecraft and like this. It's just like this whole section of like, here's a list of games that like transcend gaming culture, and like they just have their own little communities and their own little bubbles, and it's like cool, neat. I hope you you know
Yes. So that's gonna be our February news in a way. Anything else, Corey? I think we had a good discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I could talk about Switch forever or Nintendo forever at this point. You know, we could do another 2 hours of just nothing, talking about nothing. You know, and I don't know. The last couple nights talking about Nintendo has just it's made me really happy, and like it's been a nice break from stressing out about a lot of the other things that are going on at Boss Rush right now. You know, like not like stressed out like there's people are causing problems or anything. I don't want people to think that. Just like we do a lot, you know, I do a lot in particular on the podcast side of things, and trying to keep up with the writing stuff, and it's just a lot. And the last couple nights have just been like kind of relaxing, because like I said yesterday, like Pow Block kind of just feels like home for me. And sometimes I feel like I sit on my Switch and I look at it and I feel like maybe I've outgrown Nintendo a little bit in certain areas, right? But then I turn around and like they announce they have like Shin Megami Tensei 5, they have Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Zelda, Mario plus Rabbids, and Ninja Turtles is coming, like, and there's all these games that I want to play, and it's like, well, yeah, clearly those are games I want to play. And it's just like, you know, the last couple of years, some of the stuff that's hit Switch just wasn't for me, but this is a year where Switch is just it's going to dominate my game time, you know, and I'm happy that it is. I'm happy that like Nintendo is like, oh man, we've got a bunch of stuff that you're gonna enjoy this year. Hope you have time to play it all and enough dollars to buy it all.
Hi.
Yeah, but like the year that Animal Crossing came out, you know, like I didn't play Switch at all that year until like I've dabbled in Paper Mario and I played a little bit of Age of Calamity, but like that was a really down year for me for Switch, you know, and it's kind of like, oh man, that kind of sucks. But I mean, again, a big expansion for Destiny held me over, and
yeah,
you know, I was who was I talking to? I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I was just like, man, because like a lot of people at my job, like everybody has a Switch, and people were just talking about like a lot of them like Switch is the only console they own, which is like, I don't want to say it's unique, but it kind of is unique where like Switch is your only console. And we were talking about some of the stuff that was announced on the Direct, and I was like, yeah, for me, like my game stuff, if I wasn't like doing podcasts and stuff, I was like, I would be like, I play everything on Switch or Game Pass or Destiny, right? Like that's how I described how I want to play games, is like Game Pass, Destiny, and Nintendo Switch. That's how I want to play games. And the more I get away from like game industry stuff and game culture and a lot of things that I have a lot of issues with within the game industry as a whole, you know, it's just like, I am allowed to like things. You know, I'm allowed to not like things that other people like. And
Yeah.
it's okay, you know, and sometimes like when we get all caught up in stuff, like people yell at you for like not liking The Last of Us or something. I'm just like, I have enough stress in my life. I don't need to be stressed out while playing a game, especially a game that does not play well. uh, I don't mean to dig at The Last of Us. I know it's a great game for a lot of people, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But like the games I want to play are Zelda and Fire Emblem and Xenoblade and 2D Mario games and Mario Golf and Mario plus Rabbids and a couple indie games a year, right? And you can't get that anywhere else. You can try, right? Like there's Sackboy's Big Adventure for PlayStation 5 for all intents and purposes is a pretty decent 3D World clone. But it's not Mario 3D World, right?
Yeah.
Sackboy's floaty. Sackboy isn't as responsive. He kind of skids when you hit certain platforms, right? It's not like I'm some big like I'm not like getting down on my knees for Mario or anything because we've talked about it. I'm not a big Mario fan. I'm just not, especially 3D Mario games. I like 3D World. I think 3D World is the best Mario game ever. Shoot me. I don't care. But like I have criticisms of Sackboy. I have criticisms of Ratchet and Clank. I have criticisms of Mario. Some of the Mario stuff, just like the 3D Mario stuff, doesn't work for me. I don't like how the cameras work in a lot of them. I don't. I just don't like. I'm not as high on Odyssey as everybody else. I don't think Odyssey is the best Mario game. I don't think it's a great Mario game. I think it's a good Mario game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's okay that I don't like it as much as everybody else.
Well, I know that's been kind of the discourse that people just like you don't have to say anything because someone likes something, And I think with me, I do my best. And I try to work to be better. That I support everybody who likes whatever game that they want to play. If you love Bloodborne, I'm rooting you on to love it. And if you get in Elder Rings, I'm rooting you on. It may not be for me, and I may be like, well, you said something about this, and you said something like that, and I have my reasons for it. I will always support people who want to play video games and love what they love.
Mm-hmm.
If you enjoy a certain type of game or genre, as long as you are out there supporting it and not pirating it, I like I said, I could always go to you to educate me, to let me know what it is, and I want to play. Maybe at some point in time, I want to play whatever thing everybody else is playing. I'm not a sports person. Sports isn't not my genre. Mm-hmm. I tell. But I asked you about your Ohio team. I'll see what the discussion is about whatever sports game. I said I can't watch sports because I fall asleep. Mm-hmm. So I stay away with it. But I'm like, if there are people who love the Madden games, people who love the FIFA games, I want to hear about it and learn about it. Now, I don't want you guys to play the Nintendo versions because the way that EA allows their developers to treat it is unfair. It's unfair to the players. But I understand that you don't have to like everything. If there's a genre or a series that you don't like, you don't have to. You can say something. You can be critical about it, but it's always about being respectful in your criticism to somebody. You'd be like, "Oh, that's cool that you like it," and you can leave it just there and not go into details. Everybody knows Corey doesn't want to hear about Grand Theft Auto. I'm sick of talking about Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, like but that. I don't care about Grand Theft Auto. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't understand how that game is that big. First of all, like I'm sure like a lot of people enjoy it. But, like, I don't understand why that game is so big. I just don't. And, like, even Red Dead, like, remember, Red Dead 2 was very quietly, right? Like, that game, like after that first month or two it came out, like nobody was talking about it.
Mm-hmm. And
it still sold 43 million units.
Yeah. And I'm one of that unit. Like I could say anything about a game, but guess what? I went out and I supported that game. I went out and played it so I could see for myself. If I could, I just don't want to make a assumption or have a critical opinion about something without even giving it a try.
Mm-hmm.
I will go out and do it. I told when me and Corey when we did optional opinion about Destiny, the first one, I did a 40-day journal about it. I invited you to come to optional opinion and tell me about Destiny because I had my problems with Destiny, and then I played Destiny 2, and I was just
to be
like,
fair, you're not the only person that has problems with Destiny.
yeah, but when I played Destiny 2, I feel like this is the game that the first one should have been.
Well, and that's the thing. Everybody wants Destiny 2 to be like Destiny 1 now, and it's like, well, come on, guys. Are we still doing this like 5 years later? Like, come on.
Right,
to be fair, like, okay. Destiny's done so many great changes, and they're doing so many more great changes with the Witch Queen coming out, like weapon crafting and going full RPG mode. And like, if you want to hear more, like Tower Casuals exists. You can go listen to my Destiny podcast, but like,
but Corey, you know that I go and support Destiny with the DLC. You know, like if you're buying it, if people are buying it or it's coming out, I'm going to go buy it.
I know. And I mean, that's like the biggest complaint now with Destiny is like they're taking campaigns out of the game, and people are upset that you can't play the whole story anymore, which, Josh and I still think that it's going to be an option somewhere down the road, right? They're just trying to get the Witch Queen out the door and finish the story of the Light and Dark Saga and all that other crap. But like, I don't know where we're going with this conversation. We started talking about Destiny and I got lost.
It's just that, to give people an understanding that, even if you don't like something, you could be respectable about it. Mm-hmm. I may have my criticisms. I might have my criticisms about Microsoft, Sony, but I also have my criticisms about Nintendo. But I will always go out and support people who play. I will always go out and do my best to go support these companies and buy their games and try to finish them all the way. My backlog is big, but I'm a firm believer that yes, everything is not for everybody.
No, and when like my biggest reason why I don't tweet things out anymore unless it's like about the podcast or anything is like I see people tweet stuff out and I'm like, if it's about a game that I don't like or I don't care, I just scroll past. I don't comment. I don't need to comment. Okay, I'm good for you. You like that. Good, great. But like the biggest reason why I don't tweet things out about games anymore is because usually the first 2 or 3 comments are like, oh, you like that game? Oh, that game sucks. Oh, why did you waste your money on that? Oh, I'm not going to get an Xbox because I don't like these games. And I'm like, okay, I don't care that you don't like those games. If you don't like my opinion or you don't like this game or whatever, like, just scroll past. Like,
I don't need to know about your financial budget and what you do with it. That's your business.
Yeah. It's like,
okay, you don't like it. Great. Do I need to go buy you a box of Little Debbie so that I can no? Guess what? I'm still gonna play it.
Like I got an Xbox Series X when we got them last year, right? When Jesse and I got ours and we were kind of talking about it and tweeting out about it. I was like, yes, I got an Xbox Series X, and like being excited about it, I tweeted it out, and like the first 3 comments on the tweet were like, I don't know why anybody would want an Xbox. I'm getting a PlayStation 5. I'm like,
congratulations.
I'm going to tell you, like, I still don't see any reason to own a PlayStation 5. That's my opinion. Don't get me wrong. I'm really excited for Horizon and God of War and Uncharted, but, like, Uncharted's a re-release. Horizon and God of War are coming to PlayStation 4. But, like, I'm not going to jump on somebody. I'm not going to, like, yell at somebody for buying a PlayStation 5 for those games,
Right.
There wasn't anything for Xbox Series X at launch, right? You know what I bought an Xbox Series X for? To play Destiny at 60 frames a second in 4K. Okay, that's
exactly.
Like I could have bought Stadia for $50 to do that, right? Like I'm not just I want like Xbox, if I'm not playing Switch, Xbox is my preferred platform to play games on. And I like to have the newest version of the thing. And I think that having an Xbox Series X to play Destiny at 60 frames a second, plus like I like Halo. I'm looking forward to that eventually, right? Like when the Series X came out, obviously Halo's out now and it's great. I like Gears a lot. I'm looking forward to Gears 6 when it eventually comes out. And now, like you see what Microsoft's doing with Game Pass and the Bethesda deal and the Activision deal, right? Like they're making Game Pass more viable. To now, it's to the point where people are scooping up Series S's and they're like, "Oh well, Game Pass, that's a great idea." I'm like, "Yeah, I knew that 6 years ago when they put Sea of Thieves on it."
and even though I have my problems with Xbox 360, when it came to Xbox One, I was just like, okay, I love the direction Microsoft is going with their first party and third, and just to fill up the controller, I'm like, oh, okay, now this controller feels better. With Series X, I'm just like, of course, as a gamer, for me, everybody's gonna be playing on multiple platforms. I want to play what the Microsoft community is playing, because I'm like, when I found out that they acquired Ninja Theory, I was just like, okay, I know I won't have to play their games on Xbox. Yeah. But I'm like, I was already planning on getting one of those systems. I was already planning on getting a PlayStation 5, because I'm like, the more games that I could play, the more creativity and innovation that I could see. It helps me more than just being a gamer and a podcaster, but it helps me be more closer to the various communities that we have here on Boss Rush and at other places, because we get to talk about games and enjoy the stuff that we love to play. If we have a different opinion, we can have a different opinion, but we can always do it in a respectful and sometimes satirical manner and everything.
And to that point too is like everybody, like I mean, it's no secret that probably 80% of Boss Rush is Nintendo focused, right? Like it's not a secret, and I'm okay with that, right? And like everybody was tweeting out about the Direct and what they were excited about and everything, and I saw people like, oh, I don't know why anybody's excited for this Direct. There's nothing in there. I'm like, there's a lot of games in there, but if they're not for you, that doesn't mean there's nothing there, Right. You buy the games, the game or games that you want to buy from the Direct or that you want to check out, and you just move on with your life. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's why I just don't like this. As much as I love
this gamer gatekeeping at times.
I mean, it's not even gatekeeping. It's just like this hobby that's supposed to bring us all together and that we all love and that we can share with each other is so divisive and tears people apart, and it's just like, I hate it. It's why I stopped listening to certain gaming podcasts. It's why I stopped like listening to certain people on the internet, and why like there's certain people that I've just like stopped talking to in general. It's just like I'm trying to eliminate as much negativity from my sphere as possible, and for the most part, I do a good job, I think, of eliminating that. But also, like, it's just there's just things you can't control from people, and I think like the internet has just, as great of a tool as it is, it's just made everybody just a way worse person. And I think we all try to do a good job of like being positive and supporting each other, and like we crack jokes once in a while, and sometimes they go too far, sometimes they don't, but like I think everybody understands here, like we're here to support each other. We're here if we need help. A lot of people have been going through certain things in Boss Rush lately, and I think our community has really stepped up and like really been there for everybody that has had issues, and I'm really proud of what, even though like I'm not sometimes I feel like I'm not doing what I want to be doing within Boss Rush. It's like I am really proud of everybody who is stepping up and really like believing in our message of being better to everybody. And I think our community and how they've reacted to certain things has made me realize that like it's not all bad out there, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's why we say be more, be better.
sorry,
like
I'm tired and I'm ranting now, but
yeah,
I always know when I'm getting tired I start talking too much, but I don't realize I'm talking too much until it's way too late.
yeah. But well, I will say this because I'm like, what I love about Nintendo Pow Block. We all get to talk about things on Nintendo. We all get to talk about all the joys and stuff. And when we bring up Microsoft and PlayStation, or Sony and Microsoft, we may have some opinions about them, but we will play their games. We will support them. One of my things has been like with new releases from other people and that excited to play, even though I might not be able to play it, root them, I'm gonna support them. And like if people are happy for something and it's not for you, just be positive. I've always tried to do that. I know I'm the Nintendo guy, but I know that, and I can root everything for Nintendo and go all out for Nintendo. But I always make sure that these other platforms, they matter too when it comes to gaming, and it's always a good thing to root them on. And this old school Nintendo Pow Block that me and you have, Corey, people might be like, well, they don't agree on it might be fire. I'm like,
I mean, we don't have to agree on everything. That's the thing, is like that's our whole show, is that we don't agree on like 80% of the things that we talk about. And like I yell at you all the time and you get excited for things all the time, and it's like who said it? It might have been Deshaun maybe at one point, but he was just like maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was his brother, but he was like, one of them was like, Ed is the hype and Corey is the realist. Right? And that I mean, there was never anything closer to the truth, but like it works because that's the dynamic of the show, you know. And I mean I miss it, you know, a lot, and I'm really glad we got to do this, you know, because I mean, spoilers, Monday is Valentine's Day, or was Valentine's Day, and so like we're giving a lot of people off to spend time with their significant others and stuff, but like it gave us a chance to do this, and it's something I think we've both sorely missed, as proud as we are of Boss Rush, like the overarching kind of brand and making sure things are on schedule and running it like a business, you know, and making sure things go up on time and everybody's happy and everybody's being taken care of and everything is kind of taken away from what we used to love doing, which was this show, you know. And not that you don't love hosting it with Dan and Jacob and you know, it not
various guests.
Yeah, and it's not that you don't like it, but it's just like it's a different show, and we both miss what we used to do. And you know, I mean, I like Arsenal X, but it's never gonna take the place of what we used to do for Pow Block, you know.
Right. And I think that's when, like, when we get together and we just have these conversations, and when we're able to hang out and everything, it's engaging, you know. And like I said, whether we agree or disagree on anything, I'm always going to be your best friend. I'm always going to say I love you, and I'm always going to, like, the next day, wherever you're feeling, I'm always going to be like rooting you on, support you, or even just say a hello or something. Like, I'm always going to be there, because I feel like that's the representation of Boss Rush, just that us being for people who need it and stuff. You know, you could be upset and stuff, or you could disagree about things, but go and tell somebody that you love them, and tell them that you said hi. And you know, if you feel like you crossed the line, you always apologize and stuff. And having this old school Pow Block, what we used to do, we could come to a show without no topics and gab.
I mean, we kind of have, right? I mean, like,
you
know, and
but it's kind of a natural thing in a way.
Yeah, it's I really miss this, you know. It's, I don't know.
It's the way that we bond.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to take up too much time, because I feel like all I'm doing is like repeating myself now. And,
well,
it was nice to kind of have these couple episodes to kind of
unwind,
be us again in a non kind of, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do it this way, we got to, read the housekeeping, we got to make sure people are subscribing, we got to promote the Patreon. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, we sat,
laid back conversation.
We talked about stuff. We had conversations like nobody else is listening. And I think, like, it just brought a lot of happiness to me, at least, like, selfishly.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope, these are the kind of shows that I want to do. I don't. All right, I'm done. No, I'm done now.
Well, everybody, that has been Nintendo Pow Block. Hopefully you guys had a great Valentine's Day. Hopefully you had a great one, Corey. Yeah, this old school one, I think this kind of discussion we needed. It's just unwind, to laugh, to have those conversations that we normally don't get to have, just to hang out. You guys can follow me on Twitter at that retro code, and find my writings at bossrush.net. And then you guys can check more of our content out at Boss Rush Network on YouTube. Corey, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at IamCoreyNHD. You can find me hosting the Boss Rush podcast and Arsenal X, and check out Standard Definition and After Dark. If you go to our Patreon for $1, you can get those shows 2 weeks early. Nothing's behind a paywall. You don't have to pay, but if you want to support us directly and see what we're doing, you can go there.
Yes. Then you guys can check us out also on Discord and our Facebook group, and check us on the Boss Rush Network on Instagram too. With that, everybody, have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time on Nintendo Pow Block. Woohoo! Yes, Corey, we did it.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.